National Innovation Strategy. The nation station Oman FM, with the cooperation of the Research Council, presents Innovation Roadmap, an introduction to National Innovation Strategy from the Research Council.
Hello and welcome to Innovation Roadmap, brought to you by Radio Sultanate of Oman with the Research Council. On the Innovation Roadmap today, we're looking at the government communications, and to tell us more about it, here is our guest, and he is Mr. Badr Abdullah Al-Hinai, Director General of Government Communications at the General Secretariat of the Council of Ministers. Welcome to the program and welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting me here.
Thank you. And you have a very exciting job. How would you describe the importance of government communication?
Okay, basically, communication is important in any aspect of life, between family members, between friends, between colleagues. And this applies also on the institutional level where, for example, companies or even the public sector has to engage with the public, so that the public understands what are the projects, what are the policies that the government follows, and also making it easier for the public to understand these policies so that they can react accordingly. This is one aspect. The other part is, of course, having unified messaging for the government as a whole.
Okay.
Because the government should operate as one big body, which has different arms that serve in different sectors. So priorities for the government should be clear to all stakeholders, including the public in specific. They need to be clear, and they need to understand that the government is working towards this, and these priorities usually should be limited in terms of numbers, so that the government knows what direction is taking, and also the public will understand that direction. On the other hand, government needs to understand what the public think of and what they aspire or dream of, or even want from the government or expect from the government, so that the government can also put that in consideration in terms of either messaging their communications, or even forming their future policies and decisions, which will help, bridge the gap, that might happen if there was no efficient communication.
Between the policymakers and the people who'll be using it. So the goal is to have public engagement with the government from the people. And what are the steps taken? So when you have your objective clear, what are the steps that have been taken, and what would be in the list of planning?
Okay, first, this center being newly established, it's since we officially announced it, it's now 13 months actually.
Okay.
So we are still young.
Just 1 year and 1 month. Okay.
So we started with, understanding our partners, which is mainly all government organizations.
Okay.
So we listed all the ministries, all authorities, centers, committees, and different government entities, even government-owned companies. We listed them, we classified them, and then we planned that we should integrate with them first, so that we operate all in the same direction, with a shared objective. And this led us to organizing the first version of the Government Communications Forum that took place last year in October. That's when we announced officially the Center for Government Communications.
And where is the center located, if I can jump in?
Physically, you mean in terms of location? It's in Muscat.
Okay.
Because it's under the General Secretariat to the Cabinet of Ministers. So we are part of the General Secretariat, and basically, when we started planning our operations, we thought we should integrate with the ministries. So we held this government communications forum, and we introduced ourselves to more than, I think, 600 people who work in government communications across different ministries. And then we discussed challenges, and what should be the way forward, in terms of operating together. And also, we shared some best practices. We brought people from Singapore and the United Kingdom to share their experiences in government communications, so that we start from where they reached so far.
Okay.
Especially that with the economic challenges, you would need to adapt your messaging based on the current conditions. So that was one area that we benefited from, as well as engaging the public,
It was a crucial time.
Exactly. People need to know many things from the government. They are more aware, more educated. And also the current times require people to know what the future holds for them.
Oh, the plans. So would you say this was why it was felt there's a need for this public engagement?
Exactly. People are more well educated and more aware now. And this is not something I am saying now. It's also part of His Majesty's speech in Council of Oman in 2012. He said Omani people are now more educated, more aware, that they can give good ideas and share their opinions about different things.
Yes.
And that they can be of importance even for government itself.
So there's actually a dialogue. It's not just one-sided communications, but you're encouraging for a dialogue.
Exactly.
Between the public and the government.
This is not something new, actually.
Okay.
And what we are doing now is a culture that His Majesty has established himself in the royal tours, when he used to go to different regions and governorates.
Yes.
He sits with people. He doesn't speak only. He also listens to people. And then this conversation, two-sided conversation, has been always there under His Majesty's rule. And also, it's been part of the Omani culture in the Majlis, where people sit, the senior people, and then they discuss their issues and their interests. But then what we are bringing now is that this communication can be put on new media, like social media and websites and rich content and targeted messaging. And also the way we listen should be also smart. So we are utilizing also different
and using
smart tools.
that feedback.
Exactly.
So that's why I wanted to ask you, what are the issues the public need to be involved in?
I think almost everything. And if you watch social media now, you will see that people would talk about weather today and tomorrow, economics, and then politics, and then sport.
It's very
and then
momentary.
Yes. So they would want to express their opinions and their points of view in almost about everything. But then what we think is more important is that everything that is in the social aspect or economic aspect, like, for example, budget 2019, people would want to understand what is it based on, for example, and also how would it affect the daily life of the people, and how is the government also taking care of the social welfare, of the people. So most of the things that we focus on are economic or social, because people at the end, when they raise their concerns,
this is what
it would either fall in the economic or social. Category. Yeah, so these are the areas that we focus on.
And it's really directly linked to each person, each individual.
Exactly. For example, people discuss fuel prices.
Yes.
People raise their concerns about what the value-added tax would have for them. It has been announced by the government previously. And also, services that are related to education, health, housing. These are issues that are, people would raise their concerns based on the end result of what they are getting from the government. So government should focus its also communication activities on showcasing the end result rather than talking about planning or earlier stages of their initiatives, and this is what we are working on at the moment.
Important point there. We'll take a short break, and you are listening to Innovation Roadmap, a program brought to you by the Research Council with Radio Sultanate of Oman. Our guest is Mr. Badr Abdullah Hinai, Director General of Government Communication at the General Secretariat of the Council of Ministers. And that is our topic today, government communications.
More than 70 Omani experts and specialists representing various governmental, private, academic and civil institutions have been actively involved in the development of a National Innovation Strategy project, which was approved by the Cabinet in 2016. You are listening to the National Innovation Strategy.
Hello and welcome once again to Innovation Roadmap, and our guest today is Mr. Badr Abdullah Hinai, Director General of Government Communications at the General Secretariat of the Council of Ministers. And we've been speaking about the need for the government communication and the goal to have public engagement with the government. Now, let's find out what are the electronic devices or services that are used in this for a platform of public engagement? Because this is very exciting.
Yes, our way of working, it involves both virtual and real-life communication. And what I mean by that is it's either online or through gatherings, and workshops. And different kinds of on-ground engagement.
Okay. So there is direct link.
Yes.
In addition to being in the virtual reality.
Yes, we do hold different workshops or gatherings or events to engage with certain groups of the society, to either explain to them something or get to know their feedback or their concerns or points of view on a certain topic. So our focus on smart technologies or the online communication is also in the two ways of communication.
Okay.
Government to people and also from people to government.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is we are using social media and instant messaging applications as well as rich content, visual content mainly, to convey the messages that we want to sent to the public around the priorities of the government or certain policies. So this is one part, which is government to people.
Okay.
And then from people to government, we also use social listening tools.
Such as?
These are tools that analyze how people behave on social media.
Okay.
And what they discuss and what are their points of view.
How fascinating.
Yes, and this is something we are using tools that even use machine learning, so that they would learn the patterns of people and how they discuss things online, and then they would tell us, for example, this point of view is dominating. So, for example, in manpower related issues, people think that it's a matter of education. And then, no, some people think, no, it's the skills that need to be improved. Number 3 is maybe the willingness of Omani people in joining private sector. So these are different points of views. And then the system would help us analyzing which one is more dominating. And then this will give us a better ability to report to policymakers, to inform them that, okay, these are the points of view that people raised. And then it will help either deciding on something which is related to policy itself, or to improve our work if there is any miscommunication on a certain topic. And then it will show us also what kinds of groups are active in which region
also
in the country, as well as media. Yes, is it Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and
which is the strongest? medium?
For discussions, it's mainly Twitter for discussing, issues. But then in terms of usage, it's Instagram and WhatsApp.
Okay.
But WhatsApp being, an instant messaging app, we don't have the ability to monitor it
Yes.
through the systems we use. So we just have, the manual way of monitoring, by seeing, everybody would see what are the issues that are being discussed on WhatsApp and what content is being spread on WhatsApp. And then this will reflect back on our reporting as well. So the technology we use is two-way also. The direction from the government to people in order to explain things or communicate
The
things.
feeling of the public.
Yes. And even this the other way. And this is more effective than just seeing what people write to you on your channel. Because if you listen to people while they discuss between themselves, it will be more,
real,
sincere, more honest, than just the directed comments to you.
This is amazing because, we could just reflect on how communication, like you gave the beautiful example of Meet the People tour of His Majesty. And here we are in 2018, you're actually getting it in the digital way and a collective opinions too.
Exactly. And it helps us in producing regular reports to decision makers on what are the concerns of the people during, for example, this week or this month. And then it will help better understanding, rather than just receiving a message on WhatsApp or reading a tweet on Twitter. This will give them a better view, which is more scientific than just receiving one or two messages.
It is data.
Exactly, yeah.
But there must be challenges facing government communications. Would you say, are there any challenges?
Of course. I think the main challenge that we faced at the beginning is that being a new entity, in the communications landscape in Oman, and especially in the government itself, because there are different entities that are already there in the landscape. For example, the Ministry of Information, Public Authority for Radio and TV, and also the communications departments in different ministries. So when we came in, our priority was that we have to fit in perfectly in the scene. We don't want to step on anybody else's foot. So we engaged first with these key partners or key stakeholders to make sure that we are here to integrate with you, not to do something similar to what you have been doing for years. So this was one challenge. And then there is the integration with all the ministries, and government-owned organizations, which then we overcome by having or holding regular meetings. Okay. So we would meet with more than 100 people. Each person would represent their organization. Usually the person is director for communications. And then we would discuss different topics or challenges or areas of interest or planning ahead, so that they feel part of this ecosystem that we are overlooking. And then there are other challenges when dealing with the public, and this is sometimes the public will think, okay, this area or this topic is not clear to me, and then they will judge based on being misinformed, with lack of information,
or jump into conclusions.
Exactly. So what we have done is that we made sure that all communication should speak the language of the people. So we should simplify all terminologies,
no jargons.
Yeah, exactly.
No technical terms.
Yes, and this is something we did in budget 2018.
Right.
We simplified all the concepts. We introduced for the first time visual content, that explains concepts, pillars of the budget, and what does deficit means, what does surplus mean, and how the government is financing its public finance and so on. So these are practices that we are adopting so that we can, at least overcome the challenges that are related to the people, because people are, they tend to judge a lot, especially in the age of social media, and then
Yes.
they want to express more, and they would have a say on anything.
Yes.
And then to cope with it, that was a challenge that we are gradually, coping with also.
Quite a few shocks earlier on, but I'm sure now we've smoothened it out and they will actually find it useful too. We'll
Hopefully.
take a short break and come back. You're listening to the Innovation Roadmap.
The National Innovation System requires the harmonization and integration of innovation policies. You are listening to the National Innovation Strategy.
You're listening to Innovation Roadmap, and our guest is Mr. Badr Abdullah Al-Hinai, Director General of Government Communication at the General Secretariat of the Council of Ministers. And it's a very exciting topic about government communication, and we were looking at the challenges. But Mr. Badr, you would say, what are the potential opportunities that are foreseen? I'm sure there are opportunities. And how would you say the impact of this engagement has been?
Potential is big because we are just 1 year, 1 month old. So there's a lot to do. I think we reached probably 30% of the capacity that we should be operating in. So, and the team in terms of size is still not that big. It's just 25 people. It should be growing in the next couple of years. What we should be focusing on more is the e-participation, and I think this is an international ranking that the Sultanate is giving attention to.
Right.
So we already contributed to the advancement of the Sultanate in its ranking in the e-participation index by the UN. And what we intend to is to build on this concept of participation, either on the ground by physically getting to see people and discuss with them issues, or through the digital channels where people can participate in surveys or polls or even discussions, or public consultations, so that they can have their own say in different topics.
Actually, I want to jump in and ask this question just out of the air. Because you said of the importance of e-participation, and Oman, the global index is now ranked 74 in terms of e-participation. And then, yes, for the government communications, you seem to be giving a lot of importance to the e-platforms. Do you think that in the future you would have opportunities for apps being specifically designed for Oman? Would you be looking into those areas?
Exactly. This is part of our plan, actually, to have dedicated platforms for people to participate in and to have their say. Of course, you are targeting it to Omanis, so our plan is to partner with the e-Oman, with the Information Technology Authority.
Yes.
To enable the authentication, which is the personal authentication method that they are following, in order for people to sign in using their national ID. And then based on that, they can take part in our surveys or polls or even public consultations. This is one side. The other side is that we just, I think even this week we joined the ITA in a joint team that would consolidate all the efforts for the Sultanate to enhance its positions in the e-participation index by the UN, so that in the next report, which will be issued in less than 2 years from today, we will make sure that we advance, and also
the index.
We spread the awareness across different concerned organizations, and also to document all the initiatives before reporting them to the UN for evaluation, so that it reflects positively on the ranking. This is something that ITA is leading, and I think they are doing well in this regard, and we are here to support especially with the e-participation index, because it falls under also our nature of business, because we do engage with people in different manners.
One of the 4 pillars of the National Innovation Strategy is institutional and social integration. To what extent can government communication activate this pillar? So we're moving from ITA into, of course, innovation strategy.
Yeah, I think communication is important in order to integrate with the society. And with all these initiatives being introduced by different parties, either government or private sector, or even talented people themselves on innovation, I think building the right communication around these initiatives would help in integrating with the society, as well as also inviting the society to take part in different initiatives by the government or different plans that fall under the strategy, so that people can show their innovations, and also participate in fulfilling this strategy, because the strategy, I believe, it has a vision of reaching number 40 worldwide by 2020.
Yes.
And then number 20 worldwide by 2040.
Yes.
So if government worked in an isolated manner, if it isolated itself, it wouldn't be able to achieve higher ranks, because it needs to engage with the public. And that's where communication can be vital to engaging with the society. Yeah.
Using the smart tools, you've just given us an idea how an impact it could make, especially on social and economic policies for sustainable development. So we know that the engagement from the public is very active. Now, looking at the sector itself and the policy and decision makers, how is their response?
You mean on what people discuss?
Yes, and once the report is given, and has it begun to have an impact on the policies and decisions taken?
Yes, I think we became even faster in terms of responding to issues that are raised by the society. This is one. And two, even before people speak clearly about an issue,
yes,
and through their discussions on different platforms, I think decision makers and policy makers would understand that people think this way about this thing and think this way about the other thing, so that they would put that into consideration, and it would help them make a decision or form a policy that would be acceptable by people, and relevant, related to by people. This happens either through, if there's any special policy or decision that the government is doing, which requires some information on the, public opinion, or regularly, through the regular reports where decision makers are constantly informed about different topics, so that it stays in their minds, and then it would be useful in forming any policy or making any decision.
So we're reaching the tail end of our time session here with you, Mr. Abdullah Hinai. This has been such an eye-opener. My final question is, we are right here at the fourth industrial revolution. How can we capitalize it? You've given us some wonderful insight. And what would be your aspiration for the future of government communication?
I think, all the technologies that fall under the fourth industrial revolution would be useful for communication. For example, using artificial intelligence, you can let the machine do analysis of big data, and then understand the public opinion in an even better way. And maybe real-time processing without the intervention of any human being. This is one aspect. There's also that the computer can also be able to create content by itself. without any intervention by human beings. And we have seen this actually 3 days ago. I think the Chinese news agency had a TV presenter that is computerized. He is not a real person. He was combined of all the presenters it has.
Fantastic.
And he was telling the news in real time, but the tone was still, robotic. It doesn't have the human life, but it was doing the job. It was giving the news, presenting the news without having to have a human being. So this is also another way of adopting technologies in order to, enhance the communication. And the examples can go on and on.
But that's the way future looks like.
Exactly.
There's no end to the imagination.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Mr. Badr Abdullah Hinai, Director General of Government Communication at the General Secretariat of the Council of Ministers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. I'm Lakshmi Karthanet with Ahmed Al-Aremi. Thank you for joining us.
National Innovation Strategy. The Nation Station Oman FM with the cooperation of the Research Council presents Innovation Roadmap, an introduction to National Innovation Strategy from the Research Council.